Going on, everybody? Professional wrestler Chris Wild, live here from bar 4133 for the first time in 2024, for the first time of the 2024 season, going live here as I just watched the Philadelphia Eagles win a game I thought they were going to lose, 34 to 29 over the Green Bay Packers in Brazil. And as you saw in the thumbnail, Super Saquan Barkley, better than advertised. I'm sorry, I'm parched. It was that kind of game. Like, I was so nervous throughout the whole game. It was hard even to drink water. And I'm telling you, these games are getting harder to watch sober. But it is what it is. What these Eagles do to me. And tonight was not an easy night. The game started off really, really rough, and it was, and I'm going to be all over the place in this video, as it's the game ended about an hour ago, so it's late, and I've been up all day. But in my preview video, I was treading on the differences between Jalen Hurts and Jordan Love. Jordan Love got hot at the end of the season, and stunk in the beginning of the season, and it was the opposite for Jalen Hurts. And I almost felt like that was the tone for this game. But before we get to the two quarterbacks, and as I said in the beginning of this video and in the thumbnail, the major storyline from tonight's game was Saquon Barkley, without a doubt. Without a doubt. When the Eagles got him in the offseason and signed him to that big contract, a lot of people, a lot of Eagle fans were hoping that he would have the effect that Christian McCaffrey had on the San Francisco 49ers. And a lot of the talking heads in the media, a lot of the guys that make a lot of money doing this, said Saquon Barkley's a good running back. He's getting a little older, but he's not going to have the effect that Christian McCaffrey had. And I kind of crossed my fingers, and behind the scenes thought he absolutely would. And I know it's just one game. I get it. It's just one game. But to have the debut that he had, to have as many touchdowns as he had, nobody has had more since Terrell Owens back in the '04 season when the Philadelphia Eagles went to the Super Bowl. To do exactly what Saquon Barkley did tonight in Brazil, first game as an Eagle against a really good defense and a really good team, is something really special. When the Eagles signed him, and we all know about the Hard Knocks, we talked about that, and we could talk about that forever. We all know about how it was kind of broadcast on Hard Knocks and how the Giants GM really didn't want Saquon Barkley and didn't think that he was going to get paid the money that he thought he was. And even to the point where he didn't even think the Eagles were in the group that wanted Saquon. He thought it was between Houston and Chicago. And to see all that transpire on Hard Knocks on TV. And then for fans, the New York fans, and Saquon Barkley, he went on Jason Kelsey's podcast, and he said he thought that he would get a different reception from the New York Giants fans, that he thought that they would look at him and give him thanks for all he has done throughout the years for that organization, and for that not to happen, and for them to call him Snakewan and really just kind of put down the guy and saying he was washed or he was always injured. They didn't want him anymore. I mean, like, the things that the New York Giant fans were saying about this guy, you would think that he was there for a couple years, took some money and ran. I mean, this guy was the face of that franchise in times when that franchise was not very good at all. Having to be in an offense with an offensive line that was absolutely terrible, and with Daniel Jones as a quarterback, Saquon Barkley was the New York Giants offense. And I know when he came here, a lot of people thought that, okay, he'll be decent, and that'll be just about that. I and a lot of other Eagle fans thought differently. And if tonight is just a sample of what Saquon Barkley is for the rest of the season, then Eagle fans have so much to be happy for. And it started off bad. It really did. The first offensive series for the Eagles, the very first play of the game, Saquon Barkley gets the ball, and he slips on this horrible grass or turf or whatever it was in Brazil. And I want to get to that too. Shame on the NFL. Listen, I understand what you're trying to do. There are a lot of NFL fans, not just in the United States, but worldwide. I understand that. You've been having games in London for years now. You had a game in Mexico or a couple games in Mexico the past couple years, and now you're going to Brazil. I had problems with this, and I said it in the preview video, and I'll say it again for those that are watching. This was a home game for the Eagles. If you didn't notice, the stadium was all Eagles. Both end zones was Eagles. This was an Eagles home game. Now, if it was a homecoming type game, let's say, and the Eagles were playing, I don't know, a bad team, let's say the Giants or the Commanders, that would be one thing. But week one, to have a home game in Brazil against the Green Bay Packers, I thought was insanely unfair to the Philadelphia Eagles. When you're facing a team like the Packers, as all the media has told you, and that you saw tonight, is a good team and is a playoff team. And as you saw last year, I mean, they almost beat the 49ers. This People are thinking that this Packers team is going to the Super Bowl this year. You're playing that team and you have a chance to have a home game against that team. You want it at like a financial field, right? You want it at your house with your fans. But the Eagles have to fly 10 hours, and I know the Packers have to fly 10 hours too. They fly 10 hours, they get to Brazil, and I mean, at times it sounded like a Packers home game. I heard the Go Pack Go. You wouldn't hear that in Philly. There's no way. There were fans from all teams because it's Brazil and these people don't get to see, they don't get to see their home team. So for the Eagles to have that, I thought it was a completely unfair, a unique atmosphere. But then you look at the field. Shame on the NFL for this field, man. I mean, we went through it against Kansas City in the Super Bowl a couple of years ago, where the field was slippery and it looked like both teams were on ice skates. And for the Eagles at that time, they had almost a history-making defensive line that couldn't get their footing. It affected them a little bit more than it did the Chiefs. That's another video that you can find in the archives. And I felt like that was going to happen today. And again, it was the first drive, or the very first play, Saquan falls for a loss. And it was at that point I was like, man, here we go. This is what it's going to be like. And the first couple drives are bad. Jalen Hurts throws a terrible interception in double coverage to Devontae Smith, in really bad field position. And then the next play, the next series, there's miscommunication between him and Cam Jurgens. And it looked like this thing was going to fall apart. It looked like it was absolutely going to fall down for the Philadelphia Eagles. I almost saw it. And being an Eagle fan my whole life, I could almost picture this. I was like, I've seen this movie before. This is going to be a terrible loss. They're going to have to pick themselves up and try to beat a new and improved Atlanta team next week. But there's one man that just would not let that happen. There's one man that just would not let that happen, and that was Saquon Barkley. Eventually, and I will give the Eagles defense this, those first couple series, they limited the Green Bay Packers to 6 points, 2 field goals. Packers eventually ended up missing a field goal. And I said this, and it reminded me of a game last year that the Eagles played against the 49ers. And the Eagles, or the 49ers, the Eagles were kind of beating the 49ers, but the 49ers were holding them to field goals. And I kept saying, man, you got to score touchdowns against this team. You can't keep them hanging around. And the Green Bay Packers made the same mistake with the Eagles. Saquon Barkley caught that pass in the end zone on that wheel route. It was a thing of beauty. Great pass by Jalen. Jalen throws a terrible interception to A.J. Brown later in the game. And Jalen Hurts is another topic that will come up shortly. But Saquon just was not going to let these guys lose. 3 touchdowns in his debut. The touchdown run, again, I mean, it was just, for people to say that this guy lost a step or he lost his burst or he was cooked, to watch that was incredible. At the end of the game, he absolutely powered through runs. He had that one big play I thought could have went for a touchdown if he didn't get cute and try to stiff arm the guy. I think he could have walked or ran right past him, but he tried to stiff arm him and got tackled. He was an absolute beast, an absolute monster. And you're not, and this is just week one. I mean, you have not seen everything that you're going to see from Saquon Barkley and this Philadelphia Eagles offense. And as we're talking about the offense, we'll talk about Jalen Hurts. I don't think he looked as bad as end of last year Jalen Hurts looked. The interceptions were terrible. Again, the one where he tried to throw into double coverage to Devontae Smith in the beginning of the game was bad. The one to A.J. Brown, I think A.J. slipped. You saw A.J. waving his hand in the end zone. I think he slipped. And Jalen threw the ball across his body and was picked off there. There were a couple other passes that could have been picked off that the defenders just dropped. It could have been really 4 interceptions for Jalen Hurts. And it's crazy because all I read about all offseason was Jalen Hurts in camp No interceptions throughout camp. This historic run in camp. Nobody gives a shit about training camp. It was we were 3 plays in and he threw an interception. And again, if this was last year, this is a game the Eagles would have lost. I can't say that enough. If this was last year's team, they would have lost. You remember week 1 last year, they barely beat the Patriots. The Patriots were a bottom basement dwelling team last year that the Eagles could barely beat. This Green Bay Packer team is a team that a lot of people have. If you watch Good Morning Football, Peter Schrager has them in the Super Bowl. Jordan Love is a legit quarterback. I thought he looked kind of terrible at times today, too. Again, these guys are in Brazil. I don't know what you can take from this other than the Eagles survived a really crazy week 1 game. The defense, I the defense frustrates the shit out of me, and it felt like, and again, they really kept the Eagles in the game in the beginning by limiting the Packers to 2 field goals when Jalen Hurts and the offense was shitting the bed. But man, it's so weird. Somebody said on Twitter, it's illegal for the Eagles' defense and offense to be good at the same time because it's almost like when the offense doesn't do anything, the defense steps up. When the offense does something, the defense sets up a 70-yard touchdown. There's so many guys I want to talk about on this defense. First off, let me talk about the guys that didn't do shit. Let me talk about the guys that jerseys were clean, guys I didn't hear their names all game. Bryce Huff, who the Eagles spent, was their first free agent that they signed from the Jets. Spent a lot of money on to replace Hassan Reddick. Didn't do anything. Didn't hear his name. His jersey was, it was paper plate white. Nolan Smith, a guy I talked about in one of my TikToks, if you follow Wild Entertainment on TikTok, who, again, a guy I want to like so bad, a guy that I want to do so well because he is such a great human being and he's got that it factor and I really want it for him. Didn't do anything. And Josh Sweat, who now has number 19, looks absolutely ridiculous in a number that all I can think about is J.J. Arcega-Whiteside. Nothing. And the problem with that is these are your edge rushers, guys. These are the guys that are supposed to be getting to the quarterback. Now, the guys I did hear about are guys I have mixed feelings over. I think Jalen Carter's an absolute monster. I think he's going to be a superstar in this league. But throughout this game, he made some very, very costly penalties that at times kept the Packers on the field and resulted in Packer scores. And this happened with a lot of the guys on the Eagles defense. So you got the edge rushers who really didn't do anything. I think Jalen Carter was a force in there despite the bad plays and despite the penalties. That very last drive, he basically took Jordan Love out of the game, which was huge. And I think Jordan Love was hurt before that. Even though I'm talking about these guys not doing anything, I think there was a pass rush presence at times in the game. At times there was nowhere to be found. But again, the Packers have a good offensive line. So, and they've got a great runner in Josh Jacobs at the end. The Eagles could not stop him. Another guy I want to talk about is a guy that I really, really like. X factor of that defense. I missed him last year. It's T.J. Gardner-Johnson, man. Like, dude, you got to tackle. Like, why are you not like these guys are running past you? You're barely touching them. There's so many missed tackles around your way, and you're not the only one. But it was a glaring thing with you. And this guy brings an X factor to the team, like I said, that you can't replicate. But I really, really want to see C.J. Gardner-Johnson have a great game where he's actually tackling and maybe forcing some turnovers. So he was a bad one on that defense. I'm really torn on Nakobe Dean. I'm just torn on him. I'm just. There are times where he made some great plays, stopping runs behind the line. There were times when he made some really great tackles, but then there are times when he drops a pick six. This is a pick six dropped. The game would be completely different. The missing tackles. There's on Jalen Reed's run. Where was Nakobe Dean? Why are you making me pick between if I want to love you or hate you. I just don't understand it. Same with Zach Bond. Now, look, a lot of people are tooting Zach Bond's horn. He had that sack at the end of the game. He had a sack earlier in the game. He had 15 tackles. The dude was, look, he was working. He was doing work. But again, I'm watching Kraft from the Green Bay Packers open all the time. I'm seeing missed tackle after missed tackle. These are things that we have to fix, but because this is again, it's week one. I get it, but it just absolutely annoyed the shit out of me. Darius Slay, same thing, man. Like there are times where you just want to pull your hair out about him, and there's times where you want to just hug him. When he forced the fumble, then there's other times when he's missing tackles or he doesn't want to tackle. This defense has got to like get ready, man. They're gonna face a lot of high-powered offenses this year, starting next week. But there were some good things with the defense, and there were some things I really liked. Reed Blankenship, every time I see he's not starting safety, he just makes me look stupid, and he did this week. He was all over the ball. He had the only turnover for the defense. Looked like a stud out there. He was great. The rookie, man, how the hell did Kenyon Mitchell fall to the Philadelphia Eagles? Because listen, man, I'm watching him out there. He made some mistakes, but the kid is a rookie, and he made way more positive things happen on that field than he did mistakes. He's not losing his job anytime soon. Great pickup by the Eagles. And as I'm going through some positives about this team and this defense, there's one more negative thing I got to end the defensive talk on. A guy I used to really like, Avonte Maddox is cooked, man. He's cooked. I got some water here. If you guys have a drink, put one up for Avonte Maddox. Because he's done. I mean, he was the weak link on this defense. He really was. Jordan Love picked on him a lot. He was just bad out there. He just looked like he didn't belong. Isaiah Rodgers was hurt this week. Hopefully he gets better, and maybe you move Kenyon into the slot. Get rid of Avonte Maddox. He was just bad. He was just not good. Christian McCollum saw the field. Didn't mess up when CD wasn't on there. But so overall, I mean, the defense overall, they did not lose the game for the Eagles. But listen, Vic, and I'm talking to Vic Fangio, you've gotta do something. You've got to teach these guys how to tackle. The defense and the defensive starters played during the preseason. The offense and the offensive starters did not play during the preseason, and I've got a big problem with that. Listen, I understand injuries happen. Why get a guy injured during a preseason game? I understand it. The Philadelphia Eagles, Jalen Hurts and the Philadelphia Eagle offense, the first team, they need a preseason. It's evident. It is so evident, man. But Cam Jurgens snapping that fumble where he's snapping the ball and Jalen isn't even expecting it. And listen, man, Cam played a good game for the most part, I thought. But you need some live in-game reps to get ready for this shit. Like, it just doesn't... Just because you have a joint practice with a team or you do a scrimmage against your own team, there's nothing like live football. And you could tell throughout that first quarter, hell, even first half, that the Eagles' first-team offense, they just... Again, besides Saquon Barkley, they weren't in sync. They just weren't. Towards the end of the game was a different story. The offensive line, again, I thought for the most part played very well. Jordan Mailata, man, last year he was kind of suspect. He played decent this game. There were a couple times where guys got free and got to Jalen. But for the first game of these guys playing together, again, they didn't play preseason, but for the first game that these guys are playing together, I didn't think it was bad. I really didn't. And please, somebody tell me in the comments, because I watched over some of the game again before doing this video. I feel like Mekhi Becton played well. I mean, I'm watching this dude, and I feel like he played really well out there. Maybe I missed something, but I feel like he was better than we thought he was going to be. Again, Cam Jurgens, big shoes to fill. I thought he did okay, except for a couple of miscommunications. Thank God. Look, we talk about Saquon Barkley, right? And we talk about the touchdowns or the big run. The best thing that Saquon Barkley might have done was when he recovered that fumble from that tush push at the end. And while I'm on the tush push, guys, it's time to. You're paying a guy like Saquon Barkley. As long as he's on your team and on the roster, I don't think we need to see the tush push anymore. You gotta if Saquon Barkley, if you go under center and you can't hand it to Saquon Barkley and him not get a yard, I don't know. I don't know what you're doing. But I'm kind of tired of the tush push. I just am. I'm really, and again, it worked in their favor at some points, but that could have been a disaster at the end of that game. I mean, if a Packer would have picked up the ball, they could have ran it all the way to the house, and that's game over. They could have recovered and then just went down the field for the field goal. Game over. A lot of bad things could have happened there. Kellen Moore, the new coordinator in the offense, I talked about Vic Fangio. I thought he called a pretty decent game. Again, I kind of got annoyed because there were times where I felt like Saquon was on fire, especially he busts out a big run, they get to the red zone, and I see a bunch of Kenny Gainwell. And Gainwell made a couple good plays, I'm not going to lie. But again, I feel like when you got Saquon Barkley in the field, I think it changes everything for that defense, for that defensive mindset. Nobody's worried about Kenny G. They're just not. Nobody's worried about him. Guys are worried about Saquon Barkley. They just are. It adds a different element onto the field. I saw some Johnny Wilson. Jahan Dotson didn't have anything this game, but again, he's kind of new to the team and getting used to the playbook and getting used to the quarterback. I really didn't expect much from him either. I thought Dallas Goedert played a pretty decent game. Lane Johnson, one of the most bonehead things I've ever seen. I love Lane Johnson. I've got his jersey. Thinking a guy jumped off side, so he just lets him run around and sack the quarterback before anything was called. Really crazy. But besides that, again, first game, I felt like it was almost a preseason game for this offense, especially since the game was in friggin' Brazil. I'm so glad the Eagles will be back at the link next week and not on a field that's slippery and dangerous and in another country. I think what they did today was really impressive. They beat a championship caliber team in another country, guys. I just, again, you're going to hear a lot of different things this week about Jalen Hurts and his performance. And again, look, man, if you see the Jalen cutout behind me, you're probably thinking this guy's a huge Jalen fan. I'm a fan of any quarterback that puts on this helmet. And Jalen made some really bad decisions at some really weird times this game. But at the end of the day, when the game was on the line and the offense had the ball at the end of the game, he constructed a drive that lasted over 6 minutes and pretty much put the Packers out of it. So you got to give it to him there. And that was very, very 2022-ish. I cannot remember a scenario where that happened last year. With that being said, we're at 23 minutes. And again, it's late. I just figured I'd do this live. And, man, it's a different feeling from last year. Last year, the Eagles beat the Patriots, and it was like, man, the Patriots, they suck. We barely got out of there. And I'm trying to throw excuses out there about, oh, Bill Belichick's a great defensive coordinator. He had months to prepare for the Eagles. But this game feels different. This is a solid win. It's a satisfying win, man. And if you're an Eagles fan watching this, you got to be happy about the win. And Nick Sirianni said in his after-game press conference that they weren't going to be a prisoner to the comments of, well, you should have done this, or this wasn't good enough, or that wasn't good enough. And I think that's how we should be as fans too. They beat a good team. They beat a team that if these two teams continue, continue the trajectory, and oh my god, I swear what I'm saying isn't bullshit. Most of the time when you cough like that, it's like you're about to say bullshit. But I really hope Jordan Love is okay. And this is a team that you can see in the playoffs. You could, if each team continues on the way they're supposed to go. So, with that being said, guys, the Eagles win. again, 4-0 under Nick Sirianni, this guy that everybody or a lot of the Philadelphia media wants to hate on and whatever. The dude's 4-0 since becoming coach in week one games. And there's nothing more important than starting fast. Well, we watched the team go 10-1 and then disintegrate. So maybe start fast and just stay that way. And the Eagles did today. Saquon Barkley's a Philadelphia Eagle. Giant fans as of right now, as of today. And it might not stay this way, but I can say this today. You can suck it because Saquon's an Eagle and he looks absolutely awesome. 3 touchdowns. Eagles beat the Packers in Brazil. We get a nice little break. Get to watch a stress-free week of games. Sunday's slate full of games. And then Monday night against the Falcons, we come back. Finally, a home game. And I'll have a lot of content before then. Again, thanks everybody for watching. As always, stay safe. Stay healthy. Go Birds. And I'll see you later.